In this episode, we are full on spoilers for both the novel and the film.
Hey everyone, I am Jen.
I'm Mistress Leigh-A.
I'm Beth Domon.
And I'm the Geeky Hippie. Welcome back to What the Adaptation, the YouTube show that reviews adaptations from one format to another. This week, we're continuing and kind of almost finishing up with our coverage of Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. We've got a little bit more Pride and Prejudice coming, but that's got a little bit extra. This week, we're talking about the 2005 version. Jen, what can you tell us about this one?
It was directed by Joe Wright, and something I just now found out that the screenplay was also done by Deborah Magash. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing that.
No idea.
Someone said that. Oh, who was it? That was also Emma Thompson. I did not know that until literally just now, until you guys said that. So I was like, what? I thought I knew a whole lot about this. Apparently there's more that I can learn, and tonight is a good night to be doing that. So thank you for that.
And who are the stars of this one?
Who aren't the stars in this one is kind of like an easier question to say. I guess technically, if you want to start with I don't know, and maybe it should be Dame Judi Dench, who's I don't know who would get even top billing. Maybe then it would be Keira Knightley, and then maybe Matthew McFadden, and then maybe Rosamund Pike. I think she even may have had top billing even over Darcy. So it's kind of hard.
She did. She comes up on Amazon Prime. Well, the X-ray, and I don't know if that's just because of contemporary accolades, but almost all the women are
above McFadden. Exactly. So there's just so much. And then Mr. Collins, I mean, he had just come fresh off doing Pirates of the Caribbean. Right? So I mean, he was at the time he was pretty in demand as an actor too, so he might even have a billing over our Mr. Darcy, but he did a phenomenal job too. So
Matthew McFadden was a pretty big deal in Britain when this was made. He starred in a show called Spooks, which was a huge commercial hit.
Amazing show.
Otherwise known as MI5 here in America. And he was so brilliant. And you want to talk about ensemble cast, you should do a series on that show, because it was so deliciously so good. So many great British actors came out of that show, including Matthew McFadden, and he's so dreamy.
Oh my god, he is.
Dreamy.
I think everybody on that show at one point or another, it seems like
Rupert Henry Jones was on that show.
Our guy is one of my favorite British shows by far.
So good. So good. Yes.
Yeah.
But we're talking Pride and Prejudice.
Jeez.
Yeah. So what do you ladies think of this one compared to the others?
I'll let you guys go first.
I really enjoyed it. I'm really glad last week Rebecca said she was talking about the comparison between the miniseries, the BBC miniseries, and this major film production, and you can't. She refuses to compare and contrast the two, because the major film budget kind of has its own in its own category, but the ability to do all the nuances of the book in the miniseries. Also, and the casts are both very much on the same point. I'm so glad she said that, though, because I just couldn't put my finger on why I really enjoy the movie. And it's the composer who does all the music. The music is incredible.
Yes.
The costumes are wonderful. Just the scenery in general. It's just you can tell that it's just were able to put a little bit more money. The scenes, the ballroom scenes are just so much more elaborate. So I really
the costumes
are incredible, and being able to pay these incredible actors. I do I will wait till we get to that portion of the this episode before
they also could afford extras.
They could afford a lot of extras, yes, which was very apparent, especially in the ballroom scenes. But again, I really, really enjoyed it. It's been a while since I've seen it, so I'm so glad I got an excuse to go back and watch it.
This week was my first time watching it. I've seen it 3 times now just to have it in my head. And
Awesome.
like I was telling Beth earlier, some of the actors are actually now who I picture in my head since I watched it the other day for their characters when I think about the book character.
Well, whomst? Like who are you talking about?
Pretty much all the sisters.
Oh yeah.
Except for Lizzie, Elizabeth Bennet is still Jennifer Ely, and Colin Firth is still Mr. Darcy. I love Keira Knightley. I've had a crush on Keira Knightley for decades now, and she's not Lizzie Bennet to me yet. You know,
okay,
it's still Jennifer Ely.
Yeah, yeah, she is for a lot of people.
Fair,
but,
definitely fair.
Tom Hollander is definitely Mr. Collins.
Oh yeah,
he is. And Rosamund Pike is definitely
100%.
Jane. Yeah, 100%.
I think all the sisters are 100% more. Yeah. I think they're more the Bennett sisters from this movie than they are from even the miniseries. But
yeah,
they had a great cast in the miniseries.
Yeah, they did.
I think the thing that resonates with me, and I am a firm believer that the longer you have to tell a story, the better the story is going to be. So that's why I much prefer like these 10 episode story arcs of Star Wars TV shows and all of these Star Trek shows. They're so much better than a 2 or 2.5 hour movie. That being said, this book is easily adaptable into a beautiful retelling of the story in a little more than 2 hours. And so I think from a cinematic standpoint, they hit all of the important parts of the book. They conveyed the emotion that you were supposed to feel between the intimacy that Darcy and Lizzie form over their very unconventional courtship, I suppose you could say. I mean, everything is the ridiculousness of Mrs. Bennet. Like, everything. There was one point today when I was doing my rewatch where I literally had to fast forward because I was so embarrassed watching her portrayal of Mrs. Bennet, because I was like, if she was my mother, I would literally die. I would literally die if she was my mother. It was like,
I've come to the conclusion that my mother is Mrs. Bennet.
Oh no.
She is embarrassing in a way. She's very helpless.
Oh my gosh.
And there's a reason I'm just like, in social settings, I'm just like, why the fuck would you say that? All the time.
I mean, all the time. I have 2 kids. I have a 23-year-old daughter and a 28-year-old non-binary they child who I pray to God that I am never that kind of mother to either of my adult children, because if I am, then I'm doing something wrong. But it was so embarrassing. It was just like, but the whole, I mean, and we'll get more into that detail, but I just think that they did such a good job in hitting on the really high points and conveying the emotion that you feel when you actually read the book. If you're a fan of her works and they did such a great job with this adaptation. I love it. Yeah. And Matthew McFadden's dreamy. I could just look at him all day.
More than Colin Firth.
Yeah.
Yes.
For me. I'm sorry.
Yes. Colin Firth is amazing. I mean, don't get me wrong.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
He was a perfectly acceptable Mr. Darcy.
Yes.
But Matthew McFadden conveys the angst of the Regency, wanting to show so much more emotion than you were allowed to at the time. Both he and Keira Knightley did such a great job in that. Their conveyance of propriety was just so tangible. I just loved it. I love it.
That's why Liz couldn't really argue when he mentioned, the lack of propriety from your mother, your younger sisters, and even to an extent your father.
Yeah.
I can't figure out what it was Mr. Bennet did that was improper.
He just allowed them to be. And allows the comments, whereas I think in that period it was the expectations that the men would essentially control their wives and control their daughters. And so like just allowing them to run free is, I think, probably the objection. Because I don't think he didn't say anything in public.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it maybe was him shutting down Mary when she was playing at the ball, but I figured that would have been like really good because Mary was not playing well at all.
Well, and it wasn't the appropriate place and time.
Yeah. You notice Mary seems to play well at home. Or at least the diegetic music is supposed to be Mary playing and they're at home. It's good. But when they show her start playing, that's when she's really bad. Or when she's playing at,
or when she starts to sing along with playing, it's even more awkward.
Which is why I do neither.
This was my first foray into Pride and Prejudice. I hadn't read, like, back in the day when this came out, as everybody was talking about it, and I really liked Keira Knightley, again, from Pirates of the Caribbean, and Mr. Collins from Pirates of the Caribbean. Knowing nothing about Pride and Prejudice, I was like, it's kind of a chick flick. Is this going to be any good? Don't judge me. This is what I thought back in the day when I was a stupid kid, didn't know any different. So I watched it, and then that's what got me into reading the books, into watching the BBC series, and everything jumped off for me from this film. So I was a little bit obsessed with it. A couple of things about it's funny how you guys notice, and I'll put little factoids here and there, but like I remember from watching like the DVD extras, if you notice in the film, during the scene where Lizzie is eating at the table with Miss Catherine de Bourgh, and Catherine de Bourgh is quizzing her about how she's out in town. There are 5 candles in the candelabra. They intently show, like, you can see very clearly between Catherine de Bourgh, and one represents each of the sisters as like her family unit bond. Like they did that intentionally, where there's 5 candles.
Didn't know that.
So I thought that was pretty cool. A second thing is that when I know we're on full on spoilers, I don't know why I'm saying this, but when Darcy and Bingley come to where Bingley proposes to Jane at the end, when they're all like getting ready and they're like, oh, he's here, he's here.
I loved it.
And they're going through that whole scene. They're all like, when they open the door, if you notice, all the sisters turn, all 5 girls turn clockwise, and the mother is the only one that turns counterclockwise. And he did that intentionally, the blocking of that, to show how she's so out of space with the rest of her kids.
With her kids.
That's fascinating.
So that was a Miss Bennet pure thing of her just being addle-brained and not being able to. Anyway,
I love that.
Yeah.
Do you have any tidbits on why he keeps going back to the hand? Well, to Darcy's hands.
I'm gonna get that. Oh, are you talking about the dad when he covered his mouth? Like
no, he goes. No. The director takes the camera to Darcy's hand like 3 or 4 times.
But it's what everyone already says. It's the same thing that the internet has already sussed out. I mean, there's nothing really special there. It's because touch was so, kind of taboo at the time, and people
the propriety thing.
There's
right?
There's even a shot. There's even a shot of Bingley reaching out. I thought he was about to pinch someone's butt, but he just grabbed part of her dress to feel the fabric of her dress.
Yes.
When they were walking through. Speaking of Bingley,
yes,
he's the awkward one in this movie.
He is,
and it's not Darcy who's socially awkward, which is it's different because that's a big change, I would say, from the book, because Darcy's socially awkward and Bingley never seems socially awkward. Right. Bingley is always on top of it. What do you think of the change that they made there? Making Bingley the one who's more just not good social situations.
I don't think that he's necessarily socially awkward, except that he doesn't know how to deal with Jane. Because he's great when he's around other people. It's only when she's present, after he has met her, that there is any kind of awkwardness. I think that they did a great job in conveying the fact that they both, neither of them knew how to deal with like communication skills They're just not there, right? Like at that scene at the end, going back to like the proposal scene, right? Like after he goes in and he says, "Good day, we need to leave." He bows and he walks out. And then they're on the other side of the little estate and they're on the side of the pond. And Darcy's trying to like prep him up, like, boost him up, like, okay,
practice being Jane,
you got this,
and like
you got
let
this,
him
you got this,
talk,
right?
Yeah.
And then and then he goes back in and he does his thing and it's amazing. But just think about how repressed these people were because of the societal constraints that are placed upon them, especially in the gentry and the nobility in this time frame, right? Like the way that you do things, you're not going to have any deep thought-provoking conversations with your intended spouse, mate, partner, whatever you want to call them, if especially in this echelon of society. In most cases, it's so stilted, and you know, the confines of what's right and what's not right are so prevalent, and they, again, that's something they do such a great job of conveying in this movie. And so I don't know, he's socially awkward. I think he's just really nervous and
he's
shy.
overwhelmed. He's overwhelmed by his emotions, and I think you're absolutely
what are some other changes that stand out to you ladies in this from the book?
I think they did a great job with removing some of the tertiary characters that weren't essential to the plot. You very little meet Miss Bingley's uncle and his wife, and they don't have any kids, so that entire part of the plot goes away. She doesn't have her other sister. You really don't see a lot of the Lucas family. You mostly just see Charlotte and very quickly Mr. Lucas.
She's so good at Charlotte.
She's so good at Charlotte.
She's so good.
Yeah.
But there's not a lot of the regimental officers, even the Fosters. It's just that, like, no, you don't even see the Fosters. You just hear their name. Fosters. So it's just really quickly their name gets dropped because that's who Lydia goes with. So again, there's no Colonel Fitzwilliam at all. But I think
he's in there.
Is he?
Briefly,
yes.
He's the friend.
He's at
he's a friend.
She's at church.
He's at dinner.
He's at dinner, and then at the church, he's the person who tells.
Very quickly.
Yes, like, not a major attachment.
Like he's not part of the conversation.
Right.
So it's like Mr. Lucas. Like Mr. Lucas is there, but he's not, like, he doesn't go to the to visit Charlotte and Mr. Collins. He's just like there in a scene, so you don't see Miss Lucas at all. I think it was it condensed some of the intricacies that makes the book amazing and fascinating. But on the silver screen, unless you have the mini series time to explain why all of these things are important and like how all these cousins are actually related to people, because everybody's a fucking cousin at this point.
Right.
Or like, wait, what side of the family is this aunt or uncle on? Or like, are they actually aunts or uncles? Or I feel like every time I pick up these books, I'm like,
it's hard.
Wait, what the fuck? Who is this person again? Like, how are they related?
This is for Wheel of Time readers, okay? We know a little bit about that. It's still difficult, okay?
Exactly.
And see,
you go back far enough, they're related like farmers. They're not related at all.
The cuts that have been done are so targeted of such small things that I really didn't even notice what was missing while watching it. And hearing you talk about what they've cut, I'm like, oh, okay, because I was like, what did they cut? It was all stuff that could easily be forgotten and cut.
Absolutely.
Anyway, so. There is some dross in the book, at least when you're adapting it.
The proposal scene.
Yes.
Oh, you mean when he thinks he's Ben Affleck from Chasing Amy?
Yeah, a little bit.
Spilling his heart out
by the way.
to a woman.
Great movie.
You know, but that's all I could think about watching this scene was like, didn't I see Ben Affleck do this once? You know, sitting in the rainstorm, spilling his heart out. Yeah, but it's spoiler, it's my favorite scene. Might be my favorite scene in the movie.
Oh,
Just because
yeah.
it was so brilliantly done.
Also going back to Mr. Bingley, one of the other things I wanted to drop, I didn't know this, but I had to look up because I didn't remember his name, but the actor that plays Bingley, Simon Woods, he actually dated Rosamund Pike before this movie. They were a couple and they had a breakup, and so he was proposing to her. And it was a little bit awkward. So maybe that may have transferred on screen a little bit. I didn't know that, but they were actually a
That's
couple.
interesting.
What?
Interesting. I did not know that.
Fill in the tea on the show.
Let's get deep dive researcher, Jen.
I didn't know.
That's what I'm saying.
Also,
she told me she had all kinds of interesting stuff about this movie. I was like,
yeah, it was from the DVD extras because back then I had no life. But the whole well, I still don't. What do you mean back then? But when Beth, you mentioned how they were like talking or whatever, the director just let the cameras roll, and that's the reason why it was shot so awkwardly with them like kind of far away and not close up. It's because that was improvised. That wasn't part of the script. He just kept it in the movie.
Oh, at the end with the two guys?
The two guys going back and forth. And I'm just going to mention this. He was hyping up to get as Bingley. He was just doing like off screen. And then like Matthew was kind of helping him go through his like getting ready on lines and stuff. And he just started doing that. And they kept that as part of the film.
I would not have guessed that was.
That's why there was
completely because it seemed
I think there's
perfect
a lot of
that like Mr. Darcy was kind of, the same thing that the actors were doing, but for the characters, like hyping up Mr. Bingley, like prepping him to go, especially with Beth, with what you said, that Bingley was just so emotional around her, like couldn't get the words out.
Yeah,
it made sense with the way that Bingley was being portrayed, that he would need that practice, and they're like, okay, I'm gonna propose.
It was so cute. I love how they can have that.
You got this. Great. You got this. Now go in there. You got this.
So cool.
Yeah.
I suspect there are a number of improv moments. There's one, I don't know why I think it's improv, but they're outside and it's Jane and Lizzie talking. They're like in the town, not in town in London, but like the village. And they're talking outside, and they're like right at a corner of a building. There's a couple of extras leaning up against the corner, and Jane turns around and hits the guy.
She bumps into him.
Bumps into him. I have a sneaking suspicion that was an accidental. I don't think that was blocked. That seemed like something that just happened on set. And the extra was smart, and just played with it. I don't know. I don't know why I think that. It just that moment. Just every time I watched it, that moment stood out for some reason, and it's weird that it stood out, but it did. So,
are we talking about favorite scenes yet?
I was just about to start saying let's go to favorite scenes. We've talked about all the changes that stood out.
So they did omit a couple of letters, which I thought was good. The way that they changed the order of things. So like Jane came back from town after Lizzie came back. So the whole, and then they did an in-person information dump as opposed to sharing. I know
correspondence.
During the miniseries, the creative way that they still wrote the letters, but then had on-scene interactions, flashbacks, or cutovers. So I love this large screen adaptation to overcoming the awkwardness of the letters while still giving the major information dumps that the letters provide.
Very well said. I think that's the best
exposition without feeling like exposition.
Yes.
They even got rid of the letter to her aunt that Liz wrote. Her aunt went to find out what happened with why Darcy was there.
Oh yeah, because
she got all that straight from Lydia.
Yeah. So again, cutting out some of these tertiary characters, but still making the story flow.
Yes.
So even though the aunt is there, but like the aunt's not giving, you don't see the aunt's perspective looking at Darcy and Lizzie. So you don't see it, like they're just kind of, they're taking Lizzie and bringing her to Pemberton, and that's it. Pemberley.
Yeah.
That's their major function.
I love that it was Mrs. Crawley playing her aunt.
Yeah.
Before Downton Abbey.
I'm here for it.
Downton Abbey, I was just like, yes. This is great.
So here for it. So here for it.
She was great.
There are just so many people that I recognized in this movie.
This movie had a great ensemble cast for sure.
Oliver's
So
ears.
favorite
No, I don't
scene?
think the cuts were detrimental at all. The character cuts.
Nope.
No.
I think it flowed. The story. I mean, like I said, this adaptation was brilliant from a book to movie with the time constraints that you can have. I think they did a really great job with this.
Yeah,
A better job than the 1940. That's for sure.
Oh my God. So true.
Yeah.
Well, and so the cuts were pivotal to just streamlining to the main part of the story.
Yeah.
So you didn't. The book is very robust because you do have some of these like side plots almost.
Yes.
That's very realistic to what life is. But for a 2-hour movie, you don't have time to like interweave all these like side plots.
Exactly.
So
not unless they're zombies.
Not unless that's next week, right?
Yes.
Yeah. The next 2 weeks.
The
next 2 weeks.
Next 2 weeks.
Next week's the book, and then the week after that's the movie.
So good. So good.
I'm excited.
I haven't seen it yet.
Okay, so can I talk about my favorite part?
Yes.
Let's hear your favorite scene in this movie.
My favorite scene is the ball scene when they are dancing together. I love that scene so much. The cinematography, the way that the camera moves, and how they're flowing in between the other people. And then that scene where they stop and they're talking to each other and the people are all moving around them. I just thought it was so
and
beautiful.
Even better when everybody else is gone and it's just the two of them dancing.
Yes, and then she just walks
until
off.
they stop and she bows, and then you get a cut shot to, and you see her bonding with the other women next to her.
Yes.
And it's like they were there the whole time, but they only had eyes for each other.
Oh my God, it was so brilliant. And that was something that resonated with me even watching it 20 years ago, practically, right? I just love that scene so much. It's my favorite scene of the entire thing.
And the awkwardness of the conversation, like having to have it as you're passing by.
Yes.
And it gives you a chance to think and just be like, did he seriously just say that? And it's like, what is she talking about? Like, you can almost see it on their face.
Yeah.
Like
Exactly.
They're not directly arguing.
It was nowhere near as an awkward conversation as when Mr. Collins was trying to talk to her.
But
That was another time.
That was just amazing
because he was
to
like,
watch.
Mr. Darcy,
Yeah.
Mr. Darcy, and the whole
was
room gets
just-
quiet. And you're like, oh dear, sweet baby Jesus, I am so embarrassed for you. Fast forward. But the other thing I love is the little tidbits of like societal information that they dropped in there, because she says, do you prefer public balls over private balls? So like, if you guys aren't aware of like Regency England, they used to have public balls in assembly halls, which is what they were attending that night. That was considered a public ball, where so anybody who was of the gentry or nobility could go and mingle. And if your daughters were out, they were in on the season in the ton, they were out. And so it was a way to go and socialize with people of societal means. And I love how they just throw those little tidbits in there. And God, my favorite. That's my favorite scene, the ballroom scene.
Thank you for explaining those, because I didn't know about it. I didn't know about them. So
public. Do you prefer a public ball or a private ball, my lord? Anyway, so.
And you always have to be careful what, because when it comes to the Brits, public and private don't always mean what you think it means. Like a public school, we would call a private school.
I didn't know that.
So, yeah.
Interesting.
It's unless I completely misunderstood what I watched in something not too long ago. But yeah, they have different names for, their schools that are like completely opposed to how we would phrase it. So, but yeah, I'm glad you brought that up and pointed that out. I learned something.
You're welcome. Glad to have been of assistance.
Jen, what about you? What about your favorite scene?
Just visceral, of course, the proposal scene. It was the first time I had seen anything like that. I was like, it just showed to me how they were like, she was just cutting him and he was cutting her, and they were like, bah, 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 bah.
You're
like,
talking about the initial proposal where he was like,
yeah,
I hate everything about your family. No. The first one, the first proposal scene where she turns him down.
Yeah,
the rain scene.
The
rain scene behind me.
I thought you were talking about the one where she gave him the cut, where she was like, "No, I find you."
She does turn him down here.
Yeah.
I thought she turned him down in the. Oh no, you're right. There were two rain scenes. God damn. Move on, please.
Okay.
Sorry.
You're good.
I was thinking in my head, the first time he proposed to her was when he visited her in the house when she was visiting after.
No, he was just pacing around and then he got awkward and
he gave her the letter there.
Yeah.
Never mind. Moving on. I'm shutting up now.
Yeah. No, you're fine. You're totally fine. No, that was pretty cool. But as far as what I think is the most beautiful scene to like kind of go back and look through is that big huge tree when she's sitting and eating an apple right before Pemberley.
Yes.
And then the very first shots of Pemberley with the stags running. I'm like, you even show the deer outside of and you just hear as she's walking around, and you know that ballroom foyer is when you first enter the estate, and they're going and she's looking at all the statues, which I think is interesting thing that you only find that kind of in that movie. So I think that is pretty close. If I couldn't choose the proposal scene, it would be the scenery of that.
Pemberley.
Beautiful.
Oh my God. Pemberley in this movie.
Oh my God.
Pemberley was just to die for in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
And the sculptures, just that gallery, that's probably my second favorite scene. In the gallery.
So beautiful.
And that one statue of the Vestal Virgin with the veil. I was telling my friend yesterday, I have no idea how the sculpture did anything like that. That technique just makes my brain melt.
Yeah.
Because it's see-through marble, and I'm just like, how the fuck?
Yeah.
And it was so gorgeous looking, everything in there that we saw for Pemberley. Yeah. I totally understand the looks on their faces when they all stood up in the carriage and looked. You know?
Yeah, she's like, does the lady know Mr. Darcy? I was like, Obviously, she's walking around thinking there could be the lady of the house. But the director also said when he was doing that, the reason why he included the sculptures and her looking at each one is because obviously you ascertain at the time she's probably a virgin, and marriage involves sex. And it was the very first time that she was considering herself like, this is something I'm going to be like opening up to. So it was kind of a virgin's kind of foray into bodies and what this means for me and living here would mean for me. So it was kind of an interesting way that they did that. Yeah. So it was the shy looking at all of the bodies and different states of undress.
There was a lot of naked bodies on that in those sculptures.
Naked bodies, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, yeah. But I would probably have to say the proposal scene because it's the first time they were speaking so quickly. The only thing I wouldn't say if I were watching it for the first time and I had to be fair and I didn't know anything about the books or anything like that, the way that it was shot, they were both speaking so quickly, and for an American ear that doesn't have that good of it was difficult for me to understand each enunciated word that they were saying in that particular scene. I had to rewind it for me personally. They were just like, and that was good because they were showcasing the direct anger that they had. But for me at first I was like, hold on, let me slow down. What exactly are they saying to each other? Rewind. Okay. Like for me it was difficult, but now obviously I know exactly what they're saying. I've seen a billion freaking times. I'm like, yeah, and I'm like mouthing the words, looking at them.
Yeah.
But, you know.
There are very few British accents that give my ears difficulty anymore. I've watched so much British TV and so many British movies. the last 15 years or so.
Yeah.
Besides, I also refuse to watch something without subtitles.
Same.
Unless it's in the movie theater, you know, I watch everything with subtitles, so
That's true.
I don't lose dialogue to pronunciation.
If I'm having issues, I will put on subtitles. Like Peaky Blinders, I had no idea what the fuck they were saying in that show.
Oh yeah,
yeah, that's a little extreme of an accent. That is a little harsh. Yeah.
It does get a
but
little.
sometimes
I watched an episode.
There are benefits too, like seeing words spelled out. So I love watching like the Star Wars movies with subtitles because, like, oh, that's how you spell that word.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But no, the general British accents for the most part, I'm mostly fine with.
What about you, Leah? What's your favorite scene?
I really loved the sister scenes. I think the way I think this is something that this adaptation is very uniquely doing is it's not just the well put together family. Like they're not just having polite breakfast. Like they are all over the place when they're in their own private space. It's just them. They are just, you know, hair going crazy.
Chemistry.
They're just like reaching over each other, talking over each other. There's 3 conversations all at once. I have 2 sisters, and then we always had like at least one friend staying with us. So there was like at least 6 girls in the house with my poor father. And then my Miss Bennett mother henning around all of us. And that's exactly what it was like. It was like constant conversation, constant motion. We were like all up in each other's space. You know, you did not have anything personal or private because you were like,
sure.
So it really reminded me of that. And I feel like, you know, again, that is probably more accurate. Like I'm sure the aristocrat, they would have those more proper meals, but the lower gentry, which is what the Bennett family was, would be that little bit more of a like the chaos. And even that scene when the Bingley and Darcy come back and they're all just, you know, the mother has the plate of food on her chest. She's coming. They're like laying on the couch. The room is a disaster.
She was humming.
Yeah. And they're all just kind of like, you know, I think one of the sisters had her like leg up over the chair and they're just like all in their comfortable space doing their, you know, sitting room thing.
Right.
But it was a different perspective. It wasn't, you know, when they did the furious cleanup, like, oh shit, the guy we have a crush on is here. And then they did the clockwise and the one counterclockwise turn. Thanks, Jen, for pointing that out. I did not notice that. But it looked like a completely different room, and that's what you're used to seeing is that like put together proper. Everybody is sitting very politely and daintily, and I can just really imagine that. And I thought it was just really cleverly done. And it felt so much more comfortable. Their house, like the chaos of the house, felt to me more comfortable. But I just the Bennett family in general, I really like all the scenes at their house. I loved so much.
I love what the director, I'm assuming it was the director, it might have been the producers that set it up. And I might be stealing some thunder from Jen. I don't know if she's going to bring this up.
I don't know everything. There's a lot of stuff, but
I watched one of the videos, the behind the scenes videos I did watch, talked about when they first got the cast, all the Bennett family together, they shoved all the Bennetts and I guess Mr. Collins too into the house that they were going to be filming at and had them play a game. What they called it? They called it Sardines. It's like reverse It. You know, where one person is hiding and everybody else has to find the person hiding.
Cute. I didn't know that.
Funny.
No.
Oh my God. I want to go to a castle and play this.
Yeah.
So that they did that to bond, you know, and it worked because there was some really good chemistry, I think, between the sisters on this show.
The only
really
thing
good chemistry.
I know that they did bonding or that was supposed to make things more lively that they did is they actually at the beginning of the movie was the shot that was filmed last. So you know what, the scene where Darcy first walks in and they're all clapping and it's like kind of like a hoedown going on. The director did that intentionally because he wanted everybody to say goodbye and feel good. We're almost done. We're done with filming. We've done all the romantic heavy scenes. This is just going to
Nice.
be a fun party, guys. When Darcy walks in, it's going to be a little bit weird, but other than that, this is our goodbye to you as the cast. Have fun, and everybody just
Nice.
dance with each other. So everybody that was in the film just got to dance and have fun and cut
That
lipstick
is
at the
so
party.
cool.
That's the only
Oh
thing
my
I know.
gosh.
That is really awesome.
Yeah. So that was one of the last
That's
things they
so
filmed.
thoughtful.
Yeah, that's all I know.
Sounds like something Rafe would do for his
Yeah.
Any other favorite episode or scenes? I mean, or lines of dialogue that anybody wanted to bring up?
I loved the very short conversation that who becomes Mrs. Collins, I can't remember her first name, had Charlotte has with Lizzie after Lizzie has turned Mr. Collins down.
Yes.
And she comes up
On the
and
swing?
Lizzie's on the swing,
she's on the
kind
swing?
of like spinning around. And Charlotte says, I've decided to marry Mr. Collins. And Lizzie's like, you can't. And she's just like, I am 27 years old. I have no money.
No prospects.
I have no prospects. I'm a financial burden on my parents. And this is a chance for me to basically have some sort of independence. And again, like,
so don't you judge me, Lizzie.
Right.
And
she turns and she walks away. And, clearly they mend fences because she, a couple months later goes to visit her. But I love that later? Even though the scene was so short, they did such a good job of conveying. Imagine what it must have been like for a woman in that time to be average. Right. Not to have enough money to attract anybody with a dowry, not to be like beautiful enough to like rely on your looks. So you come from means, but you don't have enough means to support yourself unless you get married. And I loved that scene. It's heartbreaking in a way, right? But then you see that she is settled into her new role and she's very happy to the best of her ability. I would never be able to be married to a man like Mr. Collins as he's portrayed. Ridiculous. He's he's absolutely ridiculous.
And they don't. This is one thing that none of the adaptations have done, but in the books, she does say like she makes him go garden in the morning, and then she makes him work in his office, and she
kind of leads him, right?
Yeah. So they have very little interaction, but she's able to manage his time so that
and in exchange for that, she gets safety and security and a household that she can run. And I think that is something that's very important that a lot of adaptations kind of gloss over.
Because
a woman is married.
Like,
we're married now. It's so great, but
it's
not
one
always
of those side stories that
that,
like if you're going to trim the fat, it ends up getting trimmed. It's like
Even
we're the only ones who care about Charlotte Lucas.
But they didn't dwell on it, but they did such a good job. The moments that they had in there just hit. It was like tangible. You could feel her desperation. You could feel her desire to not want to be in this lot of life anymore. And what was 27 years old was you were a spinster. You were approaching.
She said that I'm about to be a spinster. I'm about to be unmarriageable.
I just loved that scene so much. It broke my heart, but I loved it. Like it was so good.
It's become a meme now for people that turn 27 to get a cake made for their 27th birthday if they don't have any boyfriend to have that. I'm 27, have no prospects, blah blah blah. I've seen things like that on Twitter and stuff like that. Like
I'm so far past 27, I couldn't even imagine.
But I've seen people have bumper stickers made where they put that on their car. I mean, that is such an incredible scene. I agree with you too. It's almost the antithesis of Lizzie having just turned down Mr. Collins, and that was a brave thing for Charlotte Lucas to do because she walked up there on her own 2 feet, 10 toes down, and said, "Hey, I know that you just had this thing, but I'm picking him up, and I thought you should hear it from me. I'm going to tell you face to face."
I can't remember. Did this adaptation have the conversation between Lizzie and Jane where Lizzie is like, I think marriage is stupid. I'm only going to do it if I'm absolutely in love. They did. Okay.
They were huddled. They were huddled under their bed.
Under their bed.
Oh,
Yes.
okay.
Yes.
All right.
With the blanket
They
over
were
their
whispering
heads.
to each
Yeah.
other, kind of like about what marriage would be and stuff like that. And even Jane was like, "Well, at least you don't have to deal with Mr. Darcy and have to deal with him." And she goes, "Yeah." I mean,
that's right. You're right. You're right.
Mhm.
I'm still trying to figure out what was lighting them so well under that sheet. I can't imagine them having candles or a lantern.
They
that
probably
close to
had
the
a
sheet.
short candle.
Rosamund Pike's
Yeah,
hair.
just-
Yeah.
It was a really well lit shot for, you know, if you were going to be practical about how they really would have been lighting it there and then. But it's just one of those technical things my brain thinks of when I watch a movie. I'm like, can't imagine a candle under there. That's a little dangerous with those sheets.
So I have one
Is
more
that all?
general
Okay.
scene. It was the Pemberley, or not the Pemberley, the ball that Bingley threw. And I loved the big sweeping shots where the camera went from room to room and you were following a set of characters. And then there was like and it was in 3 layers. So the background was people just talking and very static. Sometimes it had some of the characters that we cared about having interactions, like Mr. Bingley was sometimes in the background doing, or not Mr. Bingley, Mr. Bennet was sometimes in the background doing interesting things, or the other sisters. And then like the conversation would happen as the characters would walk through the middle part, but then you had people in the foreground just dancing, moving constantly, and you have that as you move. So those 3 layers were very essential as you moved from room to room. And then the more intimate conversations would be in the foreground, and those people would be still. The background would also be still, but then the middle layer would be the dancers. And so like it portrayed a different level of intimacy. And again, it was like it wasn't the whole ball wasn't that constant singular motion, but I just can't imagine again, like
there's a lot of it.
Big picture money being able to have all of these very complicated moving parts and lots of people and just having this
Joe Wright has a good
motion.
He had a really good assistant director
or cinematographer, however you
everything
and cinematographer,
so good,
you know,
choreographers, like just
everything.
All the blocking and the spacing and just getting it right so that like, you know, somebody's head isn't covering up the main action. And then but also the way like in that scene, like there is with the constant motion, you were also able to see some of the things that happened. Like that's where Mary was playing and the father went in the background as they were transitioning from one conversation to another conversation. And so just they very quickly intermixed all of these important talking points that were in previous iterations were scene. Right. So they were able to make the story go faster using this technique, you know, showing some of the important parts in the background in between these moving conversations. It was that whole ball was brilliantly done. Beth, you talked about the one dancing scene. The other dancing scene is when Bingley it's Collins trying to talk to Lizzie and Lizzie talking to Jane. Yes. And as they're like, Lizzie is having 2 conversations as they're dancing and it's going back and forth and it's just hilarious. But it's again, like lacing together 2 scenes that would just take a long time to have set up those conversations and you just smash it together in a dance again. Like that, the whole ball was just very well executed and condensed in a lot of information into one major production.
I did a lot of that.
So and to Jen's point, like the scenery was incredible. You could tell the opulence and the grandeur of the house, and so had a lot of the elements that we talked about.
That brings us to our next question. We've talked a lot about it, quality, the cinematography and the special effects, what there are, if any, and sound effects and music. I mean, the music, I think.
Yeah, Dawn.
I think this.
Yeah, amazing.
Oh my god,
the main soundtrack of the film. Oh my god,
amazing.
Yeah.
Whether it's the score that was composed or the diegetic music that's used in the scenes.
Yep.
It's all really just really good. And I'm not an expert, but I think costumes in this movie blow away the miniseries.
Again, bigger budget.
True. Yeah, more money to spend on fabrics and materials and seamstresses and tailors and whatnot, So, but yeah, I'm really blown away by the costumes. I actually learned something because I saw something that I looked up. I had no idea until watching this movie that the Brits actually had blue coats in their army. And it was like a specific unit, like a division, like artillery and engineering type units is what wore the blue. But seeing who I personally think is the best Mr. Wickham we've gotten, Rupert Friend.
Yes.
He is so good.
He's so good at being smarmy. Like at first you think he's really, he's genial and just friendly.
And he's just so cute too. Oh my god.
He's very cute. He's cute.
Yeah, sorry. Actually,
he's probably the best looking. He's probably the best looking of the Wickhams we've had.
Absolutely. Yeah, he's a very good looking Wickham.
Absolutely, but that's also what makes him so compelling as a smarmy, philandering,
big
piece
villain
of crap.
Yeah,
right. I hope you've watched him on Homeland. That's where I know him from. He was so good on there.
Yes,
and when he walked by during the parade, the regimental parade, and I spotted him, I'm like, that I didn't even realize he was in the movie. I'm like, that looks like a young Rupert Friend. And then we meet him later, and I'm like, oh shit.
Yes.
I was like, wow.
You can't even.
What another name
with the first name Rupert?
It's English.
It's a good name.
Rupert Penry Jones is absolutely gorgeous. If you guys don't know who he is, you need to Google him because oh my goodness gracious. Anyway, sorry. It
just got really hot in here.
It did. Anyway.
So production stuff. We're talking about production stuff. I kind of rambled about all of it. I'll let you ladies have a shot.
Oh no, you didn't ramble at all. It was perfect. Yeah, Wickham was amazing.
Okay.
Yeah, I think he was. I didn't have the pleasure of seeing him in Homeland, so that's awesome that you guys get to see him in more stuff.
Did you see Obi-Wan Kenobi? Did you watch Obi-Wan Kenobi?
I watched parts of it. That's more Chris's thing, and I support him.
He's the Grand Inquisitor.
Oh,
he was also in Young Victoria. He was actually Prince Albert in Young Victoria.
I haven't seen Young Victoria yet.
Oh, it's so good.
I'm much more in love with Edwardian England and Regency England than I am.
Victoria is one of my favorite monarchs, but we're digressing.
If you want to get into what era I like, I'm more into the Plantagenets myself.
You're going way back.
You're going way back.
You're going back.
Okay. That's the British history that I like to read and watch about.
That period was brutal.
Brutal.
Brutal. That's what you're talking about, Glenn. We're the Roses time.
Yeah.
All right, there you go.
Oi.
Okay.
So did you guys know that Jenna Malone is American? She played Lydia. She's American.
Really?
Jenna Malone is
Donald Sutherland's Canadian.
Was Canadian, yes.
Not
so
British.
Jenna Malone was probably her most famous role was in Hunger Games.
Yeah.
And but she was also in a movie called Sucker Punch. And if you guys have never seen the graphic movies, you got to watch it. It's so good. It's kind of like gives me a vibe of what was the name of that movie that Jessica Alba starred in?
Right?
It was like Sin City. It was kind of like had a lot of like cartoony, like comic strip kind of vibe to it. And that is what Sucker Punch is.
So
it's so good. It's so good.
Weird.
Isn't that his ex?
You
have
to watch it at least twice.
You have to watch it at least twice.
First time you're like,
what?
I don't know what's going on, but it's interesting.
Yeah.
And then you get to the end and you're like,
I have seen this. Yeah.
I
And
need
I
to
like
go
Jenna
back
Malone.
and watch.
That's what I thought.
Jenna Malone's most famous, I think, scene is probably from the Hunger Games in that elevator where she's asking Peeta to unzip her, and she's standing there with Haymitch and Jennifer Lawrence, and she's just walking out.
Yes.
And she did walk out
Who
fully
does she
naked into that
play?
hotel, fully naked.
Who did she
for her.
play in that?
She was one of the people from
One of the
District
previous
7.
winners, right?
previous winners.
Okay.
And she
Okay.
ends up being one of the people who fights for the she becomes a rebel, basically.
Okay. Good. Cool.
Yeah.
Hunger Games
I
spoilers,
watched
even
them
though that's been
all
out.
once.
Spoilers for Hunger Games.
Yeah, I've watched them all once and don't remember shit. You know,
That's good.
Yeah,
barely remember any of it.
it's fine. But anyway, so I just wanted to throw that little tidbit
Lydia.
in.
She is. She is.
She's
in that.
Merkin. She's Merkin.
She's very
She's
Merkin.
Merkin.
She's right.
Yeah,
And Sucker Punch is a good movie. I agree.
highly
Well,
recommend.
her accent was convincing.
Yeah, it was
And
very
so is
convincing,
Donald
right?
Sutherland. I'm also not great
Sutherland's
with
accent
accents,
was
so
off.
like my opinion is like don't take it for
Me too.
I can't
Right.
do accents, but I can hear when when an accent's bad.
I can't. I'll be like, you did an accent.
Of course.
That's great because I can't.
I'm also to the point where sometimes some actors I don't even notice that they have an accent. Like Ian McShane. Never occurred to me that he was British.
Really?
I just don't hear it. I never heard it in his voice. He's got Ian McShane's voice.
Mm-hmm.
He's got like this very distinct voice and accent of his own that it didn't occur to me. Oh, that's a British accent. No, I just,
Yeah.
you know, so.
So
Right.
getting back to the question, we've touched on it a lot, but the scenery was just incredible. I really loved the Bennett house. Again, the Bennett.
Me too.
Back to the
Chaos.
Bennett.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, and just
Longbourn.
like the
Yes.
it was. I feel like
It's 10 in the
When-
morning when she's like scraping the butter and they're all having breakfast, and it's like,
Yeah.
Mary, not now. Like that
But
whole
also
thing. was
they
so
they
great.
didn't shy away from having darker color rooms,
Right.
which I do feel like a lot of TV shows and films when they're doing this era try to go with lighter colors and more airy
Mhm.
colors, but that wasn't very common. Some of those darker colors, they were the rage back then. It like you were spending money because some of these pigments were trending. So around the time of Jane Austen, like that verdigris green was they didn't have it in this, but like that was a very popular color. So those dark blues were because they were
Yeah.
the discovery of how to mass make these previously expensive pigments were kind of a sign of affluence. And so a lot of those colors were trending. So like I really appreciated that the house had that, but also just I do feel like Mr. Bennett and Miss Bennett have this constant chaos going on between the two of them. So they would not have a clean, tidy house. So
Right.
the fact
No.
that Mr. Bennett's study is just books and papers everywhere. And I love how Donald Sutherland is like slouching in every single fucking scene. He's
Yes.
just down and he's like fiddling with something. And
He's
he's
relaxed.
just off in his own world doing his own thing. But it shows like it lends to that chaos of his mind.
Absolutely.
That makes
Wasn't
him
he in Hunger Games too?
Yes.
Yes.
For
President
President
Snow.
Snow.
No,
He was horrible.
Yeah.
He was the
Yeah.
villain.
It's like, so there's
Well,
like a few Hunger Games
spoilers.
people in this movie.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Yes.
wow.
Yeah.
Lots of crossover.
That just occurred
He's
to me.
also
I
a
was
vampire because I think he still looks the same now as he did.
like 20 years ago.
So
I mean,
does.
he was also in God, I can't remember the name of the movie with Matthew McConaughey.
Not Pelican Brief. Lincoln Lawyer.
Yes, I mean, like he literally looks the same. Like
Mhm.
before you know it, his son is going to look the same age as him. Like Kiefer Sutherland is going to look just like Donald Sutherland. And they're going to be.
He's
Are
not
you
older.
brothers?
Yeah.
No.
When
He's a vampire, literally a vampire.
Yeah, I believe that's probably what he was doing, hiding his fangs, Jen. You said
No.
you had an you had an explanation for something that he was doing throughout the movie.
Thing to do back then.
I didn't know
He
I
was
didn't know if we would come
constantly
across it.
Covering
I
your
didn't want to
teeth
just
when you
say it.
laugh.
Yes.
Yeah,
So
I've never.
one of you has sussed it out already in the Discord. Tell me who, but I forgot. I think maybe it was you, Glenn. I just said that I would say it. It's because his teeth were so good, and you're not supposed to have really good teeth back then. So he played the part. He looked the part, except obviously his nice white clean choppers. So when he was laughing a lot like that, he thought it would take somebody out of the scene of what's going on there between him and his daughter. So he tried to cover up how his modern mouth, because obviously
that's
people,
so thoughtful.
Yeah, he's like
my brain went to his dentures were slipping, or that Mr. Bennett's dentures were slipping.
No, it was definitely his teeth. He was
someone with full
hide
dentures, my brain was in it. That was where my brain automatically went. I was like, I've had that problem where,
especially as an older man, like you could kind of try to squeak by it if you're like, the protagonist age, like one of the Bennett girls or something like that. But for being like a 60, 70, a man of advancing years, I don't know how you want to put it.
In that time period, he would
have like beautiful straight white teeth. So that's why he did it. He said he was just embarrassed by it for being the character anyway.
He was embarrassed by having amazing teeth.
Not like, he was embarrassed about the fact that not like, that's probably the word to say, but he was what's the word? Like conscious. That's the word. I'm sorry. I apologize. I said that wrong. Self-conscious. Yes, that was a me.
I was trying to think of that too.
I apologize. Yeah, that's what it was.
Hilarious.
That was all.
So, did you guys want to move on to actors, or did you have anything more on the technical side anybody want to bring up?
Music was great. Scenery was great. Lizzie standing on like that side of the thing, the big shot of the wind whipping her, which is where they get like the
theatrical poster.
Also, Joe was talking about how he intentionally hated one thing from this time period, and when he found out that he was going to be doing a Pride and Prejudice movie, he had one insistence. He said, "If you look at all the girls behind me, you'll notice one thing in common: none of them have bonnets on." He hates bonnets. He only said that there was one scene that there was a girl wearing a bonnet, because
Jane wore a bonnet when
Jane wore a bonnet
where she bumped into the extra.
Where she bumps into and Jane wears a bonnet. She's the most pristine, good character of the sisters, so she's the one that got regimented with the bonnet, because Liz is too practical and the other girls are too young. So of course, and then Mrs. Bingley was not.
Lydia wore a bonnet when she was married, though. When she came back to the house, and
she was a married lady.
Bonnet, yes.
I think that was a more status thing at that point.
Yes, probably yes.
But nobody else, like even the people you see dancing at the balls and stuff, even Bingley's sister, there's no bonnets, so that was the only thing I think
I'm fine with that, because there was some horrible bonnets in the 1940 movie.
Oh god,
we're not talking about
too many bonnets.
I still have PTSD from those fucking costumes.
I'm sorry, it was my fault. I made you watch the movie.
That was about it. I already mentioned it, so yeah, there's nothing else.
So let's move to actors.
They all suck.
Who
next?
Who? Okay. Who stands out for you?
Pardon?
Who stands out for you?
Oh, who doesn't? Like I said at the beginning, I'm gonna have to think. I'm gonna have to I knew this question was coming. I'm sorry, I'm unprepared.
I got it down to
think
4.
about it. Like I don't know.
Down to 4?
I already mentioned Rupert Friend.
I know it's hard. Yeah, he's good.
I already mentioned Rupert Friend. I cheated. I threw him out early. Outside of actors, but I always have 3. Almost always I have 3.
Oliver, there's no significance of bonnets. I'm sorry, I just want to answer this. It's not a significance for it. It was just that's what every lady wore at the time period. He's just going to do something out the box and do a Pride and Prejudice movie without a lot of girls wearing bonnets. That was it. That's the end of the conversation. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Glenn. I apologize. Please continue.
My first pick for my third place actor is Mr. Sutherland as Mr. Bennet.
Yes,
he's just. You can't not mention him.
Yeah,
but I'll let you guys go first.
No, actually, do your 3, and then that will help us.
We all want to hear you. We all want to hear you.
Number 2 is Matthew McFadden,
of course,
Faden, however it's pronounced, as Mr. Darcy.
Yeah,
and then my number 1 is Rosamund Pike as Jane Bennett.
Mm-hmm.
I just loved her. And you notice I don't have the one I have a crush on listed. There's no Keira Knightley listed there, but Rosamund Pike she stole this movie.
Mm-hmm.
I think
she really does. Because she really portrays that quiet but thoughtful without having to say a lot. And I love the way she like bats her eyes when people are talking to her. Like it's just like she's taking it in and it's almost overwhelming. And then she smiles and like just all of her non-verbal expressions are incredible. I mean, it's Rosamund Pike. She's the most amazing. So
she is awesome.
Not biased at all.
No, not at all.
I mean, this was just 5 years before she won her Oscar for Gone Girl. So, I mean, just laying the foundation for really amazing.
And you know what I said after I saw Gone Girl? I said she should be playing Lanfear. Oh, because that's who she played in Gone Girl.
Yeah.
That's pretty much who she played in Gone Girl, was Lanfear. Yes. So, although we did get a pretty dang good Lanfear, I have to admit that.
Not sad at all.
Not sad about Natasha.
I still think Rosamund would have been just brilliant.
Rosamund will kill any part that she plays. She is just so incredible.
Yeah, she's just that good.
She is good.
Yeah.
100%.
You could give her any part and she would slay it.
Agreed.
So, Beth, who's your favorite actor in the movie?
I mean, McDreamy. I mean, Matthew, I just love him in this movie. Like I said, he does such a good job in conveying the emotion that he has in regards to Lizzie within the constraints of the societal norms for his station in Regency.
He's got it bad because even in this scene, when she's being horrible to him.
Oh my God! But he's still yes.
He's almost kissing her.
Yes.
His eyes keep going down to her mouth.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And he starts to lean forward, and I'm just like, he's not going to kiss her here, is he?
At the end,
they were about to.
When they're married at the very end, the last scene, when she's like rubbing his shin, and then he kneels down, and he's like, and she's like, you can only call me Mrs. Darcy. And he's like, Mrs. Darcy. And then he kisses a cheek. And then Mrs. Darcy, and he kisses another cheek. Then he kisses her eyes. Then, I mean, it's just, oh my God.
Well, and I actually agree with both of y'all from earlier that I do actually prefer him over Colin Firth. And I think the one watching this, because I know when we were reviewing the miniseries, I was like, oh, Darcy's on the neurospicy spectrum. It's like, like that big epiphany. I think Matthew also conveys that. But what he does that Colin Firth, but what he doesn't do, what Colin Firth didn't do, like Colin Firth is more of the Bridget Jones's Mr. Darcy, where he's like kind of self-conscious, more modern, where he like kind of shrinks in on himself a little bit. Matthew has the gentry posture.
Absolutely.
So he still is that consummate noble, the person who is always like, but that's his mask. And he is going to keep this mask on in front of people. He doesn't ever shrink in on himself, but he does have that, like, I don't know how to react to the situation, and it's all in his face. Yeah. And that is my major reason for preferring him over Colin Firth, because I think Colin Firth just has too much of a contemporary posture sometimes.
Fair.
So that's such a nitpicky thing, but I think it does make a big difference.
I think the reason why Firth and Ely are so stuck in my head as the lead characters is because I've spent more time watching those two than all of these other characters. If I watch this movie maybe 2 or 3 more times, it might start to shift it, at least towards him.
Yeah,
there's a lot of people that like the BBC more, at least in the circles that I've seen. Maybe I'm completely incorrect.
I mean, you have a little more fleshed out story in the BBC. You have a more, it's more true to the books,
But getting back to what Rebecca said last week, she just refuses to compare them because, like, you can't really, like the BBC doesn't have the budget that this movie has,
Right.
but this movie doesn't
Right.
have the time that the miniseries had. So there's a little bit of give and take. If you could get this budget with that length, oh my God, can you fucking imagine?
Oh,
Yeah.
You mean like a modern day miniseries?
Yes.
Yeah.
You know, like
And
what
I'm
they
just
just did
wondering
for
when it's going to
Shogun?
come, because you know it's going to come. You know there's going to be another. It's like every 20 to 25 years there's an adaptation.
Especially with how popular Bridgerton is now.
We cannot talk about that show right now. We cannot talk about it.
I don't know anything about that show.
I don't
We
know about it,
cannot.
but I know a little bit.
Wait.
What is
We
it?
will lecture them. We will lecture them
Tell me about
after
it
we
after.
finish
Yes.
this.
I
We'll
just
put a
Right.
pin
one
in
other
that.
person real quick that I want to drop is Dame Judi Dench.
Oh, that's what
Yeah.
I was going to say. She was. I have to think. Okay, I'll wait. I'll pop.
I was gonna say she doesn't have a huge part in this, but there is a reason why she was given the title that she was
role.
given. Is it the CBR? Is that what it's called? When she's knighted for
Not
being
sure.
or made a dame for her works in theater and TV and film. She's brilliant. I mean,
She's incredible.
she plays that condescending. She's so good at it, and I won't go on too much about it. I'll let you, Jen, but I just love her in this movie. I love her arrogance and her really sharp wit. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I just
I didn't know what
absolutely
any of those
love-
were, but
I love her in this movie.
she was great.
Yeah,
She was great, but
you wanted
This is
to
gonna
bitch
sound
slap her,
weird.
but she was great.
of the three we've had for Catherine de Bourgh, I think the one I like up until the end of the movie is actually the old lady in the 1940 black and
40s?
white film.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really
She was the
dug
most
her.
different. I'll probably say that.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the performance she gave. You know, other than the fake out thing at the end, spoiler if you haven't seen it, but you know, she plays a fake out.
Well, but that's more of a
Yeah.
script than
Yeah.
actress.
Actor.
You know, but her performance, I really like. I can't even think of who played her in the miniseries.
The
No,
miniseries, because I had that criticism about the miniseries, was the actress chose to go more of the Miss Bennett route.
Yes.
But
Agreed.
that is not the purpose of Lady Catherine de Bourgh. Lady Catherine de Bourgh is the rich, ridiculous version. So Miss Bennett is the, like, I'm putting air quotes because it's not poor, like flippant, but also just extremely ridiculous in her own ways. And then Catherine de Bourgh has all this power and influence and money, but is in her own right extremely ridiculous.
Right.
And so that's why I didn't like the way the actress, and I don't know if it was solely the actress's how she chose to portray that, if it was more of a production decision. Regardless, I don't like that portrayal. We don't need another Miss Bennett. Miss Bennett is too much on her own.
You're so on point with that. Yeah.
So,
Right.
but that's what Jane
tell you
Judi Dench does, is like she portrays that snobbery and how ridiculous she is. Like,
Mhm.
I wish they had given her a little bit more screen time, because I mean,
And her daughter is played by a Rosamund. I don't remember her last name, but I looked up just to see if she was listed as in the regular cast or as an extra. But her daughter was Rosamund something. I'm like, don't find two Rosamunds making one movie often.
I'm probably gonna have to go. Like, obviously, I really like this Lizzie, even though I really like Jennifer Leigh-A. I mean, she did a fantastic job. But I probably would say what makes it different, because you need a foil to Keira Knightley. You need someone that could match Keira Knightley as a very strong, feminine. I don't give a fuck. And you need a very strong lady that could not only keep Fitzwilliam in line, but Darcy in line, and her in line when she's at their house, and get the commanding respect of Collins. And you needed one person to be in different storylines. It was her navigating Collins. It was her like navigating the very end that she exposes the fact that well, actually, Lizzie exposed herself when she asked, "Will you promise never enter an engagement with my nephew?" And she goes, "I certainly won't, and I never shall." That was how Darcy knew. Okay, maybe
so
she's
good.
still like, you needed that to have the second proposal even happen. You need that person to be the anti Keira Knightley, but you need someone just as strong as her. And I think in the 2 previous adaptations we've had, you haven't had someone that's a strong foil as much as her. I think that's what makes this particular adaptation, if you're talking about compared to the 40s version and the BBC version, strong, because it's not Wickham really as much, because Darcy easily deals with him. He's dealt with off screen, and he comes back married to Lydia. He's not really, once he gets exposed, he really doesn't become an issue anymore, because he doesn't have any teeth to bite with. Everybody can just so she becomes the shades of Pemberley to be thus polluted. No one else would talk to Lizzie like that. Not a single person, not her father, not her mother, not even Darcy, because Lizzie will snap right back at Darcy and put him in his place, as we've already seen. She's the only one, even though Catherine de Bourgh was dismissed and told, "You have insulted me, and I cannot, thus you must have nothing further to say." And she tells her to get the fuck out of her house.
Exactly.
GTFO.
I have never.
It was still she dismissed Lizzie's mom. She goes, "Madam, you have a very small garden. I would like to speak to Miss Elizabeth alone." She ushered the people of Longbourn out of their own house. She was and you need someone in all those beats to be that. So I would say Judi Dench, and it makes me think of Dune. You order about my mother in her own house, and she's like, "Come here, kneel." Same kind of thing, but it's a different. That's another movie. But anyway,
we created a monster when we introduced her to Dune.
I'm sorry, I love Dune.
We did.
I think of her from the Chronicles of Riddick personally, but
yes. So I would think it's very important in whatever adaptation you make. If they make a new one, you have to have, I think, the pivotal foil to the story has to be Catherine de Bourgh ruining everyone's day.
Sure.
Jen, so I'm curious, Jen, have you started Pride and Prejudice and Zombies yet?
I have not had the pleasure to do that. Sorry.
Have you seen it?
No.
Definitely read the book first.
Read the book first. Read the book first.
I've read some of the book. I haven't. Okay, I'm part of the.
I've been having fun with it. I just was.
The book is kind of cool the way how it's done with the italicized. Like they even take you. Okay, we're now going to depart from Austen's novel and stuff. It's kind of interesting how they do that. I haven't actually got to.
I'm listening to the audio book of it. So. No, but I've heard who plays Catherine de Bourgh. I heard who plays Catherine de Bourgh in that, and I'm just looking forward to that.
Who is it? Tell me.
Lena Headey.
Oh,
Lena Headey.
Cersei herself.
Yes.
Oh,
I'm just like,
too.
I hate the character so much. I can't wait to see it.
It's good. Okay. I started watching it.
I see. As far as I'm concerned, Elizabeth Bennet was far, far, far too polite and nice to Catherine de Bourgh there at the end. When Catherine de Bourgh was like, "I've never been talked to this way in my life. I've never been so disappointed," I'd have been like, "Well, that's too bad. You should have been disappointed a long time ago." Because
but that's how it was back then. Like, remember, this isn't contemporary.
I know.
That's how Jane
Austen have a mouth
wrote it.
on me. I know. I have the mouth on me, and I don't tolerate that kind of attitude. If somebody cops an attitude, I snap back. That's why I'm saying Lizzie's way too nice and polite for me. I could never have been that polite to Catherine de Bourgh. Never. Well, I think we are moving on to themes.
I need to do my favorites.
Oh, I am so sorry. Go ahead.
I think the sisters, since we've gone through most of them, I think the sisters just like stand out. They stand out. They were perfect in their interactions, the way that they dealt things. So as secondary characters, because I think we already talked about the actress who played Charlotte Lucas. She's our favorite. The sisters were really standout actresses. And I will say, again, the Bennett family. I just love this Bennett family.
Me too.
This was my favorite Mrs. Bennett because she didn't go to that high-pitched voice in every single scene. She did do it on occasion, especially at the ball when she was being loud, but it wasn't overwhelming. And
Brenda Blethyn.
Yeah, so I think she is my favorite of the Mrs. Bennetts up to this point because she still is embarrassing, but it's like the parts where you have to like I think Beth was the one like I had to fast forward through things because it was just like so, but that's how it's supposed to be. Like it's supposed to be extremely uncomfortable, but she didn't overdo it, which I think in the miniseries, just how like, oh my God, that woman's voice, like every single line was super high pitched and painful, intentionally.
And that's how Rosamund Pike does her voice too. On the audiobook, it's a really high pitched, squeaky voice, and it's.
But when you don't have those visual clues, it makes sense that you want to separate. So I understand why in the audiobook you would do that, but it doesn't necessarily like on the silver screen where you've got a lot more visual clues. Like I loved how, again, that scene where she's just laying with a plate on her chest and she's got her feet crossed up on the couch and she's just whistling and her feet are bouncing around. And like, it's just like, she doesn't need the high pitched voice because she is visibly ridiculous all the time. And like, I love the way that she portrays the character. So it makes, for me, it was much more palatable, but still powerful.
Right.
Agreed.
Brenda Blethyn for you then.
Yes.
I'm assuming that's how her name is pronounced. Blethyn. Did we get everybody this time? I'm not skipping anybody? Sorry about that, Leigh-A.
You're good.
So let's move on to themes. We've talked themes before about Pride and Prejudice, but did this movie deal with any themes that we haven't seen much of in previous adaptations, or just you really want to talk about the particular theme from this one?
The Pride and Prejudice.
Yeah, Jen. At least you could have done, say, prejudice and pride, but yeah, we see you, Jen. So, did anybody have any themes that stood out in this?
No. Go ahead.
Leigh-A?
I think movement was a theme. So there was very infrequent times when the cast was just sitting. There was very few times when people were physically still, and those were important moments, like the engagement scene, the first engagement or proposal. Like the actors were visibly still, but that like it was meant to portray some sort of gravity. So people were always walking, always moving. You know, even if they're seated, they were moving around. So
they might be still here.
Sorry, cats.
They might be still here, but the rain is moving.
Yeah,
the water is moving. Can't get into something. Do you need to pick something up?
I just know if they're just
okay.
I can hear the little bit of They're having
the kitten wanted to jump up and surprise Paka, and Paka's not happy right now. See, movement. They're illustrating my theme.
I agree with you. This one is so much more like dynamic as far as like what everyone's doing. And I would probably agree with you most on the fact that it shows Longbourn in a different kind of light than just primmy, stuffy. You got people just hanging around doing their own stuff.
It's lived in.
It's yes.
Lived in.
You have
even
that
had servants. They even showed the servants. There was one shot from the windows where you saw the younger girls in one bedroom, and then it was when Lizzie and Jane were having a conversation. But there was like a shot where it kind of went up, and you even saw a servant walking up the upper stairs.
You follow the servant around on occasion.
Yeah, you got Betty or Betsy because she's singing.
So yeah,
Just
and
saying.
I mean, so yeah, it's just a lived-in house, you know. I mean, they're not really
Yeah.
well-to-do, but they still are of some means.
Can I
and
say a cute anecdote about that? I'm glad you brought it up. I wasn't going to say anything until somebody brings it up.
Yeah.
Okay,
I
so
need to use the restroom. I have to
Okay.
step away. I got a
Go pee.
50-year-old
Go ahead.
bladder, you guys. I'm sorry. I'll be
No,
right back.
take
I
your time.
know the feeling.
I hate the person to be like, "Oh, did you do this?" But I wasn't going to say anything. I lost.
Do it. No, I love it. I want to hear all
I'll wait
this.
till she gets its comeback. But that's it. That's it. I think that's it. I don't think there's any more anecdotes that I have. Yeah, that's the only one. That was one about the maid. The director. What was his name again? I just know the DVD
Joe
extras. I
Wright.
forget the names. Yeah, yeah. He. Oh, they bring cicadas into the house. The cats. They do not, or they do. I'm confused.
They
Oh,
do, and I don't like it.
Oh, do you have cicadas right now going on? It's cicada season where you're
Nah,
at?
it's about to be. I'm like
Yeah.
imminently waiting for it.
All over
Yeah.
the American Southwest
Oh
or
my
Southeast.
God.
I mean,
Well, right
the East
now
Coast.
we've got record highs of heat. I've even taken screenshots of my phone, but I'm like, nobody gives a crap about where I live, so I don't post them. But like, it says extreme UV, high UV. It's so bright. It's not even it's the humidity and the brightness. Like, there's a heat index of almost 100 each day, and I'm like,
Oh.
it's too hot to be out on the pavement doing stuff right now. I don't know how people do it as a job. I genuinely don't.
That's too warm for me. That right there,
Get
75
out
is too warm for me.
I'm
I've got a
I'm
fan
boot
blowing
you,
on
Glenn.
me.
I'm gonna boot you. Thank you. No, I that's okay, Beth. No, it's okay. So I'll say it like, so the director really liked he wanted to, you guys are so right on point when he was saying you love Longbourn and stuff. He wanted to show like the day-to-day stuff. So they did it through the eyes of the maid walking up. And you were so right, Beth, when you noticed how like one scene was two sisters and the others was Jane. So it was right after both Jane and Lizzie at the very end got proposed to, and they're the two that live together in their room they share, and they're talking because they're the two that are about to leave. And then it shows obviously Lydia's gone because she's married, right? So she's not a part of the picture of Longbourn anymore. And then it shows, it's kind of a sad parting shot because it shows you what Kitty and Mary are going to be doing. And you see, I think it was Kitty reading Mary a book or something. Mary was reading a book to Kitty, and she doesn't have Lydia to follow around with her antics anymore. And she's so bored sitting on the bed, looking up at the ceiling.
Yes.
And it shows what her life is going to be at Longbourn now that Jane and Lizzie are both going to be gone, and Lydia's gone.
Mm-hmm.
So now the only person that Kitty has to be entertained with is the droll Mary, who likes to play piano and be annoying all the time.
Right.
So those are the two sisters that are left. And he kind of just did that to show. And he also wanted to show that the Bennets don't hate. He said, I disagree that Mr. and Mrs. Bennet didn't like each other. They had 5 children. Come on, that means something. Something had to be happening between the two of them. So he showed them as
she just didn't understand his
giggling.
sense of humor.
They showed them
I
as
don't think she
laughing and giggling
understood.
together as bed as an intimate moment between the two of them.
Well, and that was
The
another
two
mashup
left.
of conversations. As you saw the panning, because in the books he says that to Jane, and Jane's exasperated. And so Miss Bennet's having one conversation from the books and he's having another, but they pair those two conversations together to make that intimate scene. Yeah, it's brilliant. So, and even though like they've been married for a long time, like you can have your arguments, have your quips at each other, but
five girls didn't come about just because of a stork
happenstance. Right.
So he was like, no, I think they had to at least care for each other in some degree. But that's it. That's the end of my stories.
So you're still going to go with Pride and Prejudice?
No.
Yeah.
Themes? Do we have any themes that would stand out? We've talked about them all before.
That's it. That's kind of really it. Just, I guess, home life.
There was a bit.
I don't know.
There was a bit in this one, of them admitting that when they were wrong. I don't think it was nearly as strongly done as it was in the miniseries when Dorothy flat out said, "Hey, I'm sorry, I screwed you over." To Bingley, I did you wrong. I'm sorry. I apologize. And Bingley's like, "You did this? you admit it? And like, yeah, okay. I mean, how do you stay mad at somebody, you know, that admits they did it and, you know, shows, you know, we don't get quite that in this, but we do get some, you know, admitted, you know, being at fault. But anything else? Anybody have any other notes or anything that they wanted to bring up? There was one thing. This is just a funny little thing. Did anybody notice that Mrs. Bennett was hung over after the
yeah, that was the whole thing. Yeah, the balls were
like,
all night affairs.
Yeah,
they were all night affairs. They left at dawn
because she looked miserable, and she was the one cracking that egg into that drink. And she was the one who was complaining about the music being played by Mary. And I'm just like, just found it kind of funny that Mrs. Bennett was the hungover one.
Oh yeah, too much punch.
Yeah,
they showed her. They showed her industriously drinking out of the punch bowl the night before,
which was some of that ridiculous, improper behavior.
Yes.
Yeah.
So,
and the daughters were pretty drunk too.
Everybody, yes, there were so many drunk, which was so improper at that time. Like you did not get publicly intoxicated, especially as a single young woman.
Correct.
Right.
Very improper.
Well, I think we are wrapped for this episode, for this movie, ladies. Thank you, Beth, and thank you, Leigh-A, for joining.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Talk about this. I'm not sure Beth, are you coming back for Pride and Prejudice and Zombies at all?
Nope. Okay. I've got a lot going on in the next couple weeks anyway. So I'll be at DreamHack Dallas next weekend.
Oh,
Leigh-A, I'm going to be watching a live one-shot.
I heard
Brandon Lee Mulligan from Dimension 20. And I'm so excited.
Not jealous at all.
Don't worry. I'll take copious notes and let you know how it went.
It sounds like you guys are going to have,
I'll be having lots of fun next weekend. It'll be
good
a good
for
time,
you.
So.
Good for you.
Jeez.
We will be. Do you have anything you want to plug? Either of you coming up?
I'm doing a 12-hour fundraiser tomorrow for Melanoma Research Alliance Foundation on my Twitch channel. I'm a 14-year melanoma survivor. So
there on her wall.
Yes, on my wall. Beth Domon, all one word. And so I'm a 14-year melanoma survivor. So this month is Melanoma Awareness Month. And I'm wrapping up my fundraiser for this month. I've raised almost $1,000 so far. So
congratulations.
Yeah. Pretty amazing. Yeah. Very excited. So that's what I'm doing.
Congratulations.
Leigh-A, you got anything to plug?
I am hoping to release the first episode of our Wheel of Time RPG game this week. It'll be on the Malkier Talks channel. It's called Time to Roll the Dice. Beth is one of my players.
Nice.
And I just have the basic little bit of editing that I need to do. I've got follow us on Twitter and TikTok for more information about when I specifically end up releasing that. Happy to have tomorrow off because I just get to do a lot of work.
Exactly.
So I told Beth I would be editing while I watch her live stream.
That's awesome. I'll pop in there and see and see you too, Beth.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll try to stop in. Jenna, as always, thank you for joining the team and helping me keep this channel going.
Thank you.
It's always been a blast.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you guys at home for watching. Please leave a comment, give us a like, and if you would, hit that little subscribe button. It would help us out a lot. And come back next week to watch us as we talk about the novel Pride and Prejudice and Zombies by Seth Graham Smith, I think his name is, last name is. And we've got AP Canavan joining us for that and for our discussion of the movie the week after. So hope to see you here next week. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to be awesome.